Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to this session on managing in times of uncertainty. My name is Gunnar Larsen. I'm the Managing Director of the Danish-UK Association. And together with the panel of speakers and our moderator, Sofie Dralle, we're pleased to welcome you to this session. Briefly about the agenda today will be set out by Sofie. The session will be recorded, so please turn off your microphones and cameras, and then we will be sharing it with all of you post-event tomorrow with an email, or you can find it on the website afterwards where you signed up. The Danish-UK Association, we are a community. We are a mix between the Chamber of Commerce and society with a mission to connect people and fostering relationships, whether it's business relationships, personal or cultural. That is what we do by voluntary and membership engagement, like our moderator today. And that leads me on to introduce you to our moderator, Sofie Dralle. She has been a member for a fair few years, I'm pleased to say, and been and still is one of the very active members of the association. She has a background in startup. She has a background in several degrees. She has taken a master from King's and from Copenhagen. She is today also the member of the board of directors of the Danish-UK Association. This event has started about 5 times ago, and roughly about 5 years ago at the same time, when we had a lot of uncertainty, and it's suddenly become a series of events of how to managing in times of uncertainty. And if you go into DKUK's website and do a search in the search part for that phrase, you will see the other events. Most of them, they have been recorded. So for now, we will get started just briefly in terms of questions and engagements. Please ask any kind of questions in the chat. Do also feel free to comment there. We will then, at the end, try to moderate as many as we can. If not, we'll try to follow up afterwards. But do see the recording tomorrow on the website for a revisit. So with that, can I hand over to you, Sofie, and take it from here? Welcome all.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gunnar, for a wonderful introduction. We are so pleased to be here. So how this event was born, just a quick intro, is that I myself have, as we all have, I'm sure, been faced by big life changes. And the question started to come, well, how do we actually manage this the best possible way? Why do we have certain preset responses, or do we? And in addition to that, how can we learn the tools to handle this so that we end up in a hopefully positive place at the end? In a second, I will introduce our wonderful panelists who have agreed to share their expertise on how we as a group best navigate the life transitions that we are faced by. And then we will dive into the questions. Before we get started, can everybody please go on mute, just to make sure that we give the speakers the opportunity to focus their answers. Thank you. If the panelists can please go on camera and off mute, we will start the introductions and then I will direct the questions. Fantastic. So thank you so much. Ingrid and Bruna and Søren are our 3 amazing experts that we have the pleasure of trying to help us through how do we get the best possible life even when the waves are hitting hard. I will start by introducing Ingrid. Ingrid is a long-time friend, a coach, a speaker, and a disc consultant. She is excellent in trying to teach us how we explore our own personal characteristics and traits, and how that disposition puts us in certain situations and how we respond with others. She is a top star professional who's founded private schools, been a principal, and is engaged in politics in Denmark on a council and national level. So you definitely have the leadership experience to know when things are in uproar. Bruna is a fantastic neuroscience-based executive team coach. She has 3,000 hours of coaching experience, and she is really experienced when it comes to talking to people across multiple industries, from pharmaceuticals, tech giants, including Google, Meta, and American Express. I am personally super thrilled to hear your perspective as well on how to leverage neuroscience to make a positive impact. So thank you for that. And Søren, I think it's fair to say you're a bit of a well-known figure in Denmark with your leading expertise on building personal positive habits that transform our life. Søren has over 20 years of experience. He has built the Center for Cognitive Development. I think you have now written your 14th or 15th book. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
And also you have Lynge-metoden, where you not only the Lynge method, where you not only teach people in your methodology, but you also train other cognitive coaches. So a fantastic group. We're so pleased to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Cool. As the agenda is in the chat, some of you who have joined later might not have seen it. So let me just copy paste that so everyone has it. We will start with a line of questions. And I will start with you, Ingel. Before we dive into how we managed this life transition, I think it's important that we define what is a big life event. Can you please put your words on what do you define as a big life event?
Well, first of all, I think life is full of big life events. And I would say it's situations that has that profound impact on our life. It changes around situations unexpectedly or expectedly. And it could be graduation, it could be marriage, it could be becoming a parent, it could be, lifelong situations that we are put in that we haven't tried before and that we have to navigate in. And I think the challenge for today is that we, of course, experienced in our own lives big events, but because of the social media, because of the online access, we not only experience our own big life events, but we also have to experience other people going through things. And it can be such a tremendous, crazy world to be in. We can be so overwhelmed with how other people are experiencing big life events.
So you're saying it's not just about our journey, but it's our journey together with others, which provides further complexity.
Yes.
So, Søren, I'm curious to hear what's your take on this? And also, are there any sort of different categories in addition to what Ingel said? How would you classify and define big life events?
I think there is two kind of people. Everyone have changes in their life, good and bad. But there is a big difference between those who come out in the other end very positive and life-changing in a positive way, and those who don't do. And in many ways, I think that our mindset tool, if we have a lot of mindset tools, I think we're going out with success no matter what kind of pressure there will be in life. And I see a lot of people going through life with a lot of changes, good or bad, who come out very successful. And what I think is interesting is to think, what have they done right, and what can all of others people learn from them? I'll come more into that today.
Yes, I think that sounds really fantastic. Before we dive into the next question, Bruna, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yes, as they were talking, something came to mind. Is like big life changes, life transition is the one mentioned. And the first that comes to mind generally is a divorce or a career change or relocation or the loss of someone that is really important in our life. What it does is like somehow, or at least this is the perception that we might have, is like cracking our world. But what I've learned a long time ago is that in that crack, it means that sunlight can come in. So what that means is it can feel terribly bad and tough, but there's always an opportunity, because again, in that crack, there might be something coming in. The point is, if we are resisting that crack, or if we are somehow embracing it. So I think that's a perspective we should consider as well.
Yeah, I really like that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. A friend just said to me yesterday, he said it was a Jewish phrase that when we are faced by much trouble, that's where our true character will be born. So that's a new place to be found. So I think that's such an encouragement for everybody in this room, I hope.
Can I add something to that, Sophie?
Yes?
I think life crisis contained two things: pain and possibilities. And we need to shift our attention to the possibilities. That's why we survive in this.
Yeah. I really like that. I think that's a very good stepping stone to go to the next question. I really like that, San. That's brilliant. And thank you all for your perspective. But I guess before we get to the possibility, I would actually like to understand why we understand it and experience it like a crack. Bruna, I would like to hear from you because you have a neuroscience-based approach. I'd be very curious to start by asking your perspective on what happens inside our brain and our bodies on a cellular level when we are faced by change. What are the biological mechanisms that make this difficult for some of us, or that can make it really easy?
Thank you for asking, because this is really important to understand. Before answering the question, I'd like to raise the attention on one very important point. There are a few principles that is really important to know about the brain to understand why we react as we react, why people do what they do. The number one thing we really need to understand about the brain is that the brain, by definition, its number one job is to save our life. It's not thinking, it's to save our life. And it does it in two ways. One is by maintaining a certain balance of energy in the body so that every organ can do its job. And that's called homeostasis. Not sure about the pronunciation in English, but yeah, it's homeostasis. But anyway, that's the word. Find the right pronunciation. And the other way is by activating what we call the survival system, which is kind of a radar that is there all the time, checking for some kind of incongruency in our reality. For example, I'm now speaking with you guys and I'm so happy and everything is relaxed and quiet. But if I hear a strong bang on my door right now, my system will detect immediately that's an incongruency. There's something that is not working well, because no one should crash my door while I am just safe at home. So that system helps maintaining the status quo. And if something is disrupting it, of course, is activating a system which many of you have probably heard of, which is called the fight, flight, or freeze system. It's basically, that's how our brain keeps us healthy, by checking what's going on. And if there's a potential or a perceived danger, it will activate a biological response that will shut the thinking. I mean, if someone is crashing my door, I shouldn't think right now, guys. I should just leave, probably, or fight, or call the police, or whatever. So what happens inside the brain is that in order to keep us alive, the system has to detect if there's any perceived danger. If it perceives that there is danger, it will stop the thinking and activate a system that sends basically all the energy to our limbs instead of our brain, so that we can react accordingly. So that's the reaction that happens when there's a perceived or a real danger. Now, the problem is a big life change, by definition, is shaking the status quo. The brain doesn't like it. And if you think about it, of course, it's there in our favor, it's to save us. So we react. I don't know if you noticed, Sophie, but I emphasize the word real danger or perceived danger.
Yes, I noticed, and it's making me think as well, in today's world where so much is disruptive, social media, ping, news media, attention, all of these things. I suppose that would also be that we, on a micro level, subconscious level, are consistently exposed to some level of threat that we might not be aware the body responds to as a threat. So not only are you going through your change, not only are you going through other people's change, but you also have the way society is structured that is a consistent, we are going to shake your system structure that we are living in society in right now. So I guess that's what it's making me think when you are saying perceived versus real danger.
Exactly. And that's why you see now more than ever before coming in so many conspiracies and crazy theories and things that rationally don't totally make sense, but a lot of people are grabbing them because they need some level of certainty, even if it's not very rational. That's why there's so many theories going on right now that people are believing without questioning too much, because at some point in this continuous state of alertedness that we have, because we sense there's something, the world is not the same as we grew up. So this difference creates a constant state of threat. It's not a real threat, it's a perceived threat, but the brain doesn't make any difference. The brain is exceptionally in what it does, but it doesn't have that sensitivity to know the difference. So all these changes going on, plus our big life transitions, it just creates a constant state of threat, which normally impacts human behavior as much as sleep, our ability to stay focused, and so many other things. So unfortunately, we are paying that price, even if our life is kind of okay, but we're paying the price of the huge uncertainty that is surrounding us anyway, because that's how the brain reacts.
Thank you, Bruna. That was excellent. I really appreciate your perspective. Susanne, something you said earlier on, when you were talking about making an active choice to take control of our biological response, that seems to be driving us opposite of where we want to go, where we hope for, where we dream for. Can you shed your experience and perspective on what you think is happening inside your brain and why it makes it so difficult? And again, you talked about the traits that make it easy. What is that?
The point is, when people have a kind of problem or crisis in their life, they use a lot of time wasting their time and energy of worrying all the time. So I think we have to be a leader for our brain. I think our brain need our leadership. And when we have too much time wasting on worry, we need to have a mindset tool to get in control, to get the control back again. And many people don't even know what a worry thought is. And if we don't know what it is, we cannot change ourselves. But maybe 80% of all people use the most thoughts they have on what they cannot change, all the worry thoughts. But what is a worry thought? First of all, when you worry, point number one, it's a thought about something who hasn't happened yet. That's the definition of a worry thought, or something that doesn't have a solution here and now. And if you waste all your energy, all your time, all your thoughts thinking about things you cannot change anyways, you don't have the energy to actually change the thing you can't change. And that's your own problems. I believe that you can change all your problems. If you can't change a problem, it's not a problem. Then it's uncontrollable circumstances. And if you want to get the leadership in your brain, you need to divide all your crises and all your problems into either your crisis is a problem, something you can change here and now, or either your crisis is an uncontrollable circumstances that you cannot change. And you need to focus and be a leader and focus on what you actually can change and accept the things you cannot change. And you need not to waste all your time and energy on worriness.
I have one question, which is, even though you can't control certain things, don't we have a choice in how we choose to engage with that sound? Because you can, if there is, for example, something that is, how can I say, something outside that happens, can you not choose to step into it or step away from it? What do you think, Sam?
I think a lot of people wasting a lot of times on what everyone else doing wrong in their life, circumstances, cars, traffic, education, other people's problems. I think a lot of people are wasting their energy because they have the wrong focus. I really need to say that if you want to have success during a crisis, the only way you can get success is to do your time where you actually can make a difference. And often that's in your own life where you can change. You cannot always change the circumstances, but you can change yourself.
Yeah. So spend your time where you can actually make a difference, divide it into two categories, and then decide what you spend your energy on. That is very much on topic with the question that I haven't raised it up front, but we are already naturally moving into it and have been dealing with it. And I just want to hear your take, Ingrid, on how do you think we can best deal with change?
Well, first of all, I like what you said, Søren, that we gotta accept that there are things we cannot change. And I believe that we have forgotten how to accept that life consists of many different things. I think we need to learn to relax a bit. We human beings, we put in this world to have communion with each other, to do things that can expand our world, to make a difference. We get too involved in ourselves, and that causes a lot of problems. So I believe that if we could start just relaxing a bit, going into nature, look around, enjoy, start being grateful for life itself, I think it will change our perspective to how we deal with life. We tend to be so worried about what we're not doing right or what we should be doing different instead of enjoying and being thankful for life. And just accept that changes is a part of life and we are fine. We can do it. People have done it for thousands of years before us, and we're okay. We have each other. We know how to look for people that can help us. We know how to get online and get information about things that we struggle with. I think we really need to relax a bit, and try to focus on who am I? Why am I in this world? What's the purpose of my life? How can I really enjoy my life? And that will change our perspective on the changes that we go through.
Yeah. Before I go to another question, I want to ask you, Ingrid, why is it, yeah, Ingrid, and maybe also Bruna, why is it so hard for us to accept when things go wrong? And Ingrid, starting with you and then Bruna.
Well, I think I might be able to dive a bit more into DISC behavioral styles, but recognizing that we all are different and we deal with changes in a very different way. DISC has become such a great tool for me to help understand myself and to help understand other people, and especially why we deal differently with changes. So some of us are wired in such a way that we love changes. We love the thrive of seeing things differently. We can see a challenge in every change, but most of us are not like that. We actually say that it's a 69% of us are really, really, really not happy with changes. Plus another 17% of us that ask questions, and if our questions are not answered, we don't really like changes. So the majority of people do not really like changes, and then of course then have difficulties dealing with us. And only 14% of the population thrive with changes. So there are many ways of dealing, and I would love to get into this. Maybe we'll do a little bit later.
Yeah, I think that's really excellent. And then for those who haven't been introduced to DISC, it's a particular type of personality analysis. Is that correct, Ingel?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Bruna, what's your take on why is it so hard for us to accept the things we can't control?
Good question. I think, again, partly it's because of how the brain reacts in those percentage that Ingrid already showed. The someone that's already naturally more open to change, which might come from DNA, it might come from a habit of continuous change. There's many reasons why one reacts in a different way, but I agree the majority of the people don't particularly like change. But I think it's partly because of how the brain works. As I said, when there is a perceived danger and a change, by definition, it is perceived as a danger, even though, for example, I am in a terrible career, I am unfulfilled and unhappy every day, and I want to change my career. So that's supposed to be a wonderful change. Still, you might experience a lot of procrastination and fear and so on. And I know this because I see this every day. And I say, but this is a beautiful change. Yeah, but the problem is for the brain, it means removing something that is really solid. Maybe it feels bad, but it's solid, and sometimes it's very tied with your identity, your job title, your role. It's about removing to the brain something that is solid for something that instead is a question mark. Of course, the brain doesn't like it. So if we look at this from a biological perspective, that's what happens. Now, if we understand this, I think it's easier to understand, okay, what should we do instead? Firstly, if it's a change that happens to us, I agree with Soren when he say change what you can change, and what you can't change, accept it. It's a fact of life, as Ingrid said. I think it helps if we adopt a growth mindset here. And by that, I mean an habit of learning from everything. As we said, a change, for as bad as it might feel, is still a crack and still some light can come in. So if I can't change it and I need to accept it, okay, at least let me see what I can learn from it. There's learning everywhere. So approaching changes with this mindset helps you relieve some of those worry thoughts that Soren mentioned before. But this is a change that perhaps happens to you that you didn't ask for. It happens. So you can only change your attitude towards it. Let's talk about the change that you decided to make. Maybe you want a divorce. Maybe you want to get out of that job. Maybe you want to change your country. You want it. Still, you are so scared, so intimidated, to the point that many people don't even take that step for a long time. So what can we do, knowing how the brain works in that case? Well, we say the problem is removing the status quo, something that is certain, to replace it with a question mark. Because I may like a different career, but I don't really know if it's the right one, if it's going to pay well, how I will feel in this, what if I'm wrong, and so on. So the solution is trying with every possible resource, and today we have plenty, to give a shape to that question mark. So we replace something solid, bad but solid, with something that is not as solid, but a little bit more tangible than a question mark. So that means approaching a change, developing a vision, as much as possible tangible vision of what is that is going to happen if I embrace this change. So developing a vision means physically moving yourself from, today is the 28th of May 2024, to the 28th of May of 2025, when things are settled a little bit. What happens if I'm here and I look back at what happened before, perhaps the steps that took me here? And especially if we approach it from a learning perspective, it's much easier, because you don't see challenges, you see opportunities to learn. So what that means is that the best way is to develop a vision, try to make it as detailed as possible. And you might not know, let's say I want to change my career and become a doctor, and you might not know what that means. Well, we have really plenty of resources and people to ask for this information. There's Google, there's artificial intelligence, there's people who can give you a lot of information.
And that's great. And I think that based on what you're saying, it's making me think, Søren, from your perspective as well. I know that you focus a lot in connection to what Bruna is saying on the tools to help us build a tangible future. Is that something that you can shed light on? And Bruna, thank you so much. That was brilliant.
Yeah, first of all, I think also that just to add, when we have changes in our life, we sometimes activate amygdala, who set a lot of millions of chemical reactions in our body, and that have a reaction in our brain and the thoughts as well. But I still believe that we need to be a captain of our own brain. We need to not listen to our thoughts. We need to talk to our thought and set new standards. What I think is when people fall apart during a life crisis, many people have this in common, that they are not present. They are again wasting a lot of time thinking about the past or thinking about the future. I think the brain cannot see the difference in the 3 time zones. We have 3 time zones in our brain. We have the past, we have the present, and we have the future. And the brain can't see the difference, I believe. So when we have a life crisis, let's say 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, if you think about that life crisis again and again and again, the brain think it's actually happened again and again and again, and it sets a lot of reaction in amygdala, who have millions of reactions in our body. So I think one of the big tools is to be present. Is always to be present, to enjoy life exactly as it is now. It can be hard because of circumstances, other people, and reactions and so on. But it is so important. If we need to have space and peace in our life and in our brain, we really need to be present. No matter what crisis there is in our life, we really need to focus and be present. We don't need to be too much in the future. We don't need to be too much in the past. We need to do whatever we can do right here and right now.
And Søren,
Yeah.
how can you be present?
To talk to yourself. The other day, I have this girl. She was going on a date, and she was so worried about that date. And I said, please, now you're home, enjoy life as it is when you're home. When you're in the bus, enjoy life while you're in the bus, thinking about the bus, thinking about life in the bus, and talk to the one who's sitting next to you. And when you are on that date, be there, be present, talk to him, ask him things, tell him about your life. Always be present. It's very hard to have a crisis in your life continuing if you just are present, because there is a lot of solutions you can make if you just are present in your life. And I think a lot of people living their life, reliving their past mistakes and crises again and again by thinking over and over and over again, what went wrong, why did it went wrong, what could I have done different, and they bang themselves with a hammer in the head again and again and again, and then the crisis just continuing. So we need sometimes to be a captain of our own thoughts and say, hey, now I'm here. The present is present. The future is not now. Now I'm here. What can I do different here and now? And I think it's so important that we try really to love our life exactly as it is today. I really think we need to create a life where we look forward to waking up every day. We need to create the life we have right here, right now, and have focus on that. We need to surround ourselves with people who love us and we share values with, people who love us as exactly as we are. And I think we need to enjoy life exactly as it is today, no matter what circumstances, no matter what crisis we have been through. We need to be present. I think that's very important for our brains to have a better life.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Søren. Before we jump to a big question, I just want to very briefly, Bruno, if you could shed light on cultural changes, mindful that we are in a chamber of commerce with people from Denmark, the UK, maybe even other places. Can you please shed light on how cultural changes impact us when it comes to the understanding of identity, whether it creates particular uncertainty? And then I will go to Ingrid, just mindful of time.
Yeah, definitely cultural changes impact us big time. And talking about countries here present in the room, there's Italy as well, which just killed something, it doesn't matter. So it's a big topic, and it's a big threat for the brain, cultural changes. Again, as per embracing changes, there are people that are naturally more open. And I would say that people that are naturally more open to change and to cultural differences are probably people who either traveled a lot or are often exposed to different ideas or read a lot. These three things can really make us more resilient when it comes to changes, and especially in facing changes that come from facing a different culture. Why is that? Because these three things technically expand the box that we have into our brain. You know, Sophie, when we say, oh, that person really thinks outside of the box, or maybe that person really has a narrow mind, or that person really has an open mind. So you can imagine these from a brain perspective, working as if we analyze the world through our lens. And our lens can be small, and if it's small like that, I will only see what's in this perspective. But if I train my brain, you know, the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain can change. It depends if you do the work that helps your brain expand. So if your brain expands because you travel, you read, you expose yourself to different ideas and so on, the more you expand your brain, it's like expanding your lens. If I go through the world with this lens, I can see many more opportunities who were there before as well. I just couldn't grab them. So my life felt limited as well.
Yeah, and that's really brilliant, Bruna. I really appreciate it. It's very practical examples of what you can do to navigate that. Ingrid, I'm really curious here to hear your perspective on why some people deal better with change than others. Can you share some examples of the personality traits, expanding a bit on DISC, just to give it the framework at least? Thank you so much, Bruna and Søren.
So DISC is divided into 4 behavioral styles. This came out of Harvard University in the 1920s. Dr. Marston came up with how normal people behave, and DISC is used all over the world in different settings. But we say that 3% of the population are dewired. So they're the dominant style. They are the direct, they're the decisive. They will be people in leadership positions. They are problem solvers and risk takers. So they deal very well with changes. We say they're so good navigating within conflicts that if there are no conflicts, they will come up with them themselves because they thrive within changes and conflicts. And then we say high I's is 11% of the population. So a high I influence with their personality. They're enthusiastic, they're talkative, they're optimistic, which means they will be curious about changes. They are impulsive, they're emotional. They make sure that everybody are good around them. So they also deal very well with change. Then you have the S's, and we call S's the steady people. They are the ones that run the world. 69% of the population are high S's. So they need the stable environment around them. They fear that loss of security. They are friendly, they're very good listeners, they're team players, they're very predictable. But when somebody tries to change their world, they will hold grudges against them. They won't come up front and say, listen, this is too much for me. They will just silently deal with it and be very uncomfortable. And then the C style, we call them the compliant style, the correct style, the analyzers. They are very much deep into facts. They are systematic. They are the anchor of reality. They're very precise, but really don't ask them to change their world if you don't have the right answers to why would it be better to change the world? So you have the four different styles, and we all have some of everything within us. Some have more higher styles than others, but we can also change a bit whatever environment we will be in. The thing is with DISC, once you have a DISC assessment, you realize that you can get to know yourself in a profound way. You can know your strengths. You can know how you deal with changes. You can know how you communicate, which is so essential, especially when you deal with changes. So the Ds will be very dominant, right? They'll tell you what to do, and they won't be friendly. The Is will make sure that they're friendly with you, and they will help you navigate, even when you explain what's going on.
Yes.
And the S's will be more quiet. So, you know, that the understanding your behavioral style helps you to just get to know yourself and embrace who you are, and get to love who you are, even your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then trying to navigate, turn up and down for yourself as you try to communicate with different styles, which is where conflict occurs, right? So it can become really messy.
Yeah, and I have a question here, because I keep coming back to the point of acceptance. My first question was, how can we then build overcoming traits if we don't have them? And why is it that we then also, as humans, maybe if we look at the DISC or any tool really, to say, I would like to be more like this, why am I not like that? What's your thoughts on learning to accept and love ourselves and then learn the tools, versus having the self-acceptance to say, oh, what if people are struggling with their identity and loving who they are before they even have to deal with the change?
Well, that's a lifelong process. Learning to love yourself and accept who you are and see the value of who you are, right? You need to surround you with people that are positive, people that will help you love you and acknowledge you for who you are, and try to build that self-image. You really have to make choices. You have to make choices. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you listening to? What voices are you letting into your head? And then you have to want to change. Like Bruna said, you got to have a mission for where you want to go in life. And how do you get that? Well, it's by surrounding yourself with people that would encourage you. It could be a mentor, it could be, you know, online courses that you joined that will help you starve for something different. If you don't have that desire, nothing is going to change. And future can be difficult to deal with, right?
Yeah. And I guess that's very interesting as well, because if you are able to build up yourself, then you will have more resilience in the face of change as well, because you know you are good enough, you know you have the tools, you know you have the network around you. To Bruna's point about building stability, when you don't have it, you have a choice to build the stability as much as possible. And I guess, Søren, I want to ask you a question. How do we remain true to ourselves when we are going through a lot of change without losing our identity completely? What's the difference between, oh, I'm just going to change myself totally and deny who I am? How does that impact people, versus saying, I'm going to learn tools that fit with who I am and my worldview? What's your thoughts on that?
I think we need to rest in our own values. And I think we need to write down our values. What is our core values in life? And I think the things you said before around to love yourself is a very, very big thing in our life. And not many people do that. It's obvious. Everyone knows that. But I actually have a good mindset tool for that. If you want to love yourself, it's so important to write 10 positive things down about yourself. write them down and look at them every day. But it's not only your own opinion about yourself. You need to find what other people have said about you. So find 10 things that other people have been saying about you who give you value. Your mother said, my uncle said, my sister said, my best friend said, and then write it down and look at it every day. And the last thing, you have some proof that you actually have some worth in your life. You have a driving license. Someone did marry you once in a while, 10 years back, you have a lot of proofs that you actually have, you are worthy. So write all the proof down, write all the comments down for other people, and all you think you have been said to yourself. And then you have 30 things, 30 proofs that you actually have a value. And then look at it every day. And when your brain says, hey, you cannot do anything, you're stupid, you're dumb, then actually go to that paper and read all 30 things up for your brain and say, you're wrong, that's not right. Actually, I have something here that proves that I'm worthy, that I'm lovable, and so on and so on. And I think when we have these mindset tools, it really helps us to change our life and our perspective, and it make our values stronger.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. That's really profound. So with only 1 or 2 minutes left, I just want to ask a final question, and I'll direct it to you, Bruna. I just want to hear your final thoughts on if there, in addition to what you mentioned, which I thought was fantastic practical steps from all of you, what do you think are especially beneficial actions we can take to deal with change? And is there anything that we should stay clear from, even more so during a time of change?
Yes, definitely. As I say, that the most practical thing that you can do is trying to build a vision of what will happen after you embrace the change. And that doesn't mean giving space to your internal gremlin and the tragedy and the most dramatic view. It's realistic. So we're not building a fake world here where everything is positive and everyone will love us. It's about being realistic. And as I said, how do we build a realistic view? Well, we ask people. One thing that I often say to my clients is that rarely, when we have to face a problem, rarely we are the first person facing that problem. Someone has already been there, changing country, divorcing, losing someone so important for us. It's about connecting with these people and trying to understand the best way they approach this, what they've learned, what mistakes they've made, and that they wish you don't make. So having conversation, going on evidence, is the best way to build that realistic vision. And then after that is about, again, realistically think, what are the obstacles to achieve that best possible vision so that I am prepared in advance. I reduce the fear if I think in advance of what might be the obstacles, and especially if at the same time I think about what might be the resources available for that. So it's not about giving space to worrying thoughts. It's about thinking obstacles. Okay, these are the obstacles. What resources can I count on? Books, courses, people, network, previous experiences, everything. When you approach the path to that vision in embracing change with all this clear picture, you feel more confident because you reduce the uncertainty that you can meet along the way. Yeah. So bottom line, it is about rationalizing. Then I think there's something else that you said.
Yeah, but I think, Bruna, that's excellent. Yeah. You are really, really hitting the nail on the head, and I like it. I almost get like a visual image of, we know that we have this change. What can we put of things in the backpack that can make us resilient, that can build us up so that we are ready for the journey. I really hope that everyone in this room has gotten some good tools, and we're not finished yet. We just have time for a couple of questions in the chat. So thank you, Bruna. That was excellent. And on Søren's point, instead of going into the negatives, I'll focus on what we can do about this. Nicola H has a question that I will just read out loud. First a comment and a question, and then I think we will go around in circles. If anyone has a question, now is the time to put it in the chat. But Nicola states that we exist in contradiction. We don't want to stand still. and stagnant, but we can rarely manage and control the pace of the change that we and others create. So we become overwhelmed and feel out of control. Nicholas' question is, what is the single most important personal attribute that will enable a person to navigate through life, change, and uncertainty? If you have to summarize one thing, I will start with Ingvild, and then Søren, and then Bruna.
I would say faith. Have faith that life is good, will be good to you. Have faith that there is a God that will help you on the way. Believe that there is a future for you. Have faith, because it will carry you through many of these things that you don't know how to deal with.
Wow, that's very powerful. A quick follow-up question. What do you do if you struggle to believe in the positives? And maybe, Søren, you can build on that afterwards.
Yeah, but look at life and see that you are not able to understand everything that's going on in life. So maybe you need to put down your fences and start looking at life a bit differently. But it's a difficult question.
Thank you, Ingvild. I appreciate your answer. Søren, over to you.
Always remember, nothing lasts forever, not even a crisis. You will come out on the other side. So try to look positive on all the changes. Write them down and read them loud for yourself. It's always a good exercise if you want to make a change in your life without failing.
Fabulous. I really appreciate that advice. And Bruna, last but definitely not least.
I think in one word, the answer to the question is resilience. If we talk about personal attribute that helps us, of course, facing change and going through that, it's resilience. But I think a more interesting answer is, okay, how do we build it? We know it's resilience. And I think an aspect that is very uncommon, it's very much connected to what Ingrid said, is building a spiritual practice. I don't think people connect a spiritual practice, which might be a religion, but not necessarily, with resilience and all that we need in practical life. Sometimes there is this separation between a spiritual practice and what we do in life and business. But the reality is we are built, that's what I believe, and that's the first assumption we need to embrace, that we have all that is needed to face what God, the universe, whatever is the view, sends to us. And it's an opportunity to fulfill that potential we have. So what that means is that resilience, as much as courage and anything else, potentially it is there. The question is, do I know how to take it out and use it in my daily life? So a spiritual practice, which might be praying, it might be meditating, it might be chanting, it might be yoga. Proper yoga is definitely a spiritual practice. Everything that through breathing brings the attention inside the body and somehow explores the inner world can be considered a spiritual practice. And it's only by doing that that we build that channel, so the resources that we have inside, we can use them in our external life. So I would say resilience, but how do we build it? Through a spiritual practice, whatever works for anyone here.
Yeah, that's really, really fantastic. It's almost like in order to be able to look outwards, you have to look inwards. And I really hope that as a part of this call, that everyone has been able to get some tools how to look inwards first in order to, either pray, meditate, read books to expand the brain, gym, build a vision, explore your personality type, try to understand others around you. I almost have this vision that we have just created a brilliant backpack to create resilience on how to managing uncertainty for life's transitions. Thank you so much for your fabulous expertise, and thank you for sharing it. I really hope everyone has enjoyed. And before we wrap up the session today, I will hand over to Gunnar.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you very much to this panel. It was very meaty session. I really loved all of it. I had a question myself, but if we don't have time for it, I'll try to catch up with you afterwards at some point. While I wrap up, let me just share a screen with you all, just to give an idea that this is not all. There's still a lot happening. First of all, this session was recorded and will be shared with all of you in an email tomorrow. So do look out for it, or go to our website tomorrow where you found the sign up, and you'll see the details. There will also be some material shared with the panelists here. I believe there was a book pending from Søren that he's happy to share with all of you, and I believe even for free. So why not revisit? And there are some material also from Bruna, and I suspect probably from Ingrid as well coming on. Moving on, there's another webinar coming on this week, which I'd like to highlight, especially if you have some Danish relations. Having a look at what are your rights in Denmark, to Denmark, with Denmark. It's not a given that you have some rights, so look out for it. And it's a place where we have gathered some legal advisors at the same time who can give some insights to it. And not everything has to be virtual. Some of it ideally should be, let's meet in person, because that's where you build the relations. That is where you have some of these questions that maybe we've been visiting here today answered or dealt with. There's a dinner with the founder of Sticks and Sushi that some or maybe all of you will know of, a very popular Japanese-Danish restaurant with several places in London. There's a inaugural meeting of a female leadership group starting in June. And last but not least, and probably the first event after the election at the Westminster Palace, we have our annual summer reception, and there's nothing politics in that. It's really just more the location. And I really invite you all to consider joining and bring your other half along, and or maybe good friends or both, for an evening of experience and meeting other people with a good view of the Thames and some Pims and whatever you can think of. With this, thank you very much to all of you. Sophia, thank you very much for a great moderation. You really kept us all to time here, to the frustration of us all, because some of those questions could easily have been elaborated on. But maybe with that, we have a reason to meet again at some point, and this session here. Ingrid, Bruna, Søren, and Sophia, thank you very much. To all of you who attended, thank you for tuning in. We'll hope to see you again soon. Have a good evening.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.